Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Logical Nonsense Podcast. Kaden Walsh is back on. College football playoff is in full swing. We've got Heisman races higher than they've ever been. Debates are going crazy. A lot of debate on the college football playoff. We're starting to gear into NFL playoff race, so we're both going to give our NFL playoff race as well as our college football playoff brackets each. But first, I want to start with our overall reactions to the college football playoff, how it went this year. First, I'll ask you this question, Cade. Do you think they got the playoff bracket right?
Yes, and I'm glad that they did because I think a lot of people thought that Alabama was going to sneak in based on SEC biased
Mm-hmm.
and SMU would be put out. And then when the bracket was revealed, Alabama wasn't in. And I think that was a huge step for the playoff committee and, for fans and everyone in general that SMU got in instead of Alabama.
Do you think the committee got scared of the fan reaction to if Alabama were to get in over SMU?
I think that's part of it, but also just resume wise, I think SMU deserved it more. So I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think Alabama was deserving with the losses that they had. Even though I know there's an argument like head to head, would they win this team or would they beat SMU or some of the other teams in the playoff?
Yeah.
Probably. But when they have to win games, they didn't execute against some of those worst teams.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, it's interesting, definitely, because if you look at obviously strength of schedule, if you look at Alabama's a lot or Alabama losses weren't great, but they do also have a win over Georgia, which is a huge win. Obviously, Georgia got in. There's some big wins that they have on their schedule. SMU's biggest wins were Duke and Louisville. So I think there is an argument for both, but it was refreshing to see SMU get in over Alabama. It felt like for once the team that the fans or the overall college football fans wanted to get in got in. So that was good to see. What are your thoughts on the seating? I know a lot of people are not a fan of the seeding. Obviously, teams like Boise State, Arizona State, they're ranked down in the 9, and even I think Arizona State was a 16 ranked team, but they both have buys. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think with the consensus of people that I'm not a big fan of the way they seeded the bracket. I know they want to do like the four strongest power conferences, get the first four buys. But overall, relative to like the best teams, I don't think the top four teams got the top four seeds.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I think that's definitely prevalent when you look at Oregon,
mhm,
and now they have to face either Tennessee or
yep,
Ohio State their second round, whereas a team like Boise State is facing Penn State or SMU,
mhm,
or even yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think to counteract that, you could reseed in the second round, so then Oregon would play the lowest remaining seed instead of having to play a juggernaut, in Ohio State or Tennessee. I feel
I
like
like that
Oregon's side of the bracket is a little bit more top heavy than Georgia's
totally.
side. So I think Ohio State 8, Tennessee 9. I don't like those seeds very
I don't
much.
either.
I'm okay with like Notre Dame, Indiana. Notre Dame's been playing good, so it's just I don't know. Some shuffling could have been done
Yeah, I
for
don't. I
sure.
also didn't love Penn State being the sixth
Yeah.
seed personally. I just feel like they're a team that struggled this year.
Mhm,
Like, yeah, they have the good record and they've gotten good wins, but they've struggled on a lot of their wins.
mhm.
So, very, very interesting. It's never going to be perfect. College football is crazy, and a lot of upsets happen, and that screws up seeding and where to put teams. But I definitely think the seeding is something they'll need to relook at going into next year. And this is early into the college football playoff system, so it's not going to be perfect, especially that first year. So, all right, well, let's get into our brackets. We'll start with you first. Well, actually, I'll have two of them up, and we can go
Mm,
back and forth. I'm gonna just start from the top.
yeah,
All right, game number one, first round, Clemson versus
yeah.
Texas. Very interesting matchup. Who you got?
I got Texas.
Why do you got Texas over Clemson?
I just think overall their defense will be able to hold Clemson in check. I think they're the better team. I think they got something to prove from that loss in the SEC championship game. So I think they'll come out hot.
I like the pick. I like the pick. All right, going to my bracket. I also got Texas. I think Texas, losing in overtime in the SEC championship. I wouldn't be surprised if this team makes a run for the college football playoff championship. Honestly, I think they're one of the best teams all around, defensively, offensively. They can get it clicking. I think it depends on how Ewers plays, but I think overall they're just a better team than Clemson overall. I was glad to see Clemson get in. They won the ACC, but I also agree that Texas should win this game. All right, going back to your bracket. Tennessee versus Ohio State, probably the best matchup that we've got in the first round. Who do you got?
This one's tough because I think both these teams should be playing different teams. Honestly, I think like Ohio State should be playing like Indiana and Tennessee, maybe against SMU or Penn State, something like that. I don't think they should be facing in the
Yeah.
first round. They're both really good teams. It's in Ohio State, and that's the only reason I'm going to give them the edge. I think they'd have something to prove too after that loss to Michigan. I thought they were playing good football up until that game, and I think they
did
get
too.
back on track.
I do too, and that's why I'm also going to go with Ohio State. I think another team that's looking for vengeance. They barely lost to Oregon earlier in the season. I could definitely see this team making a run as well, and be on the lookout for them as a dark horse team in my bracket. All right, going back to your bracket, our next game, SMU versus Penn State. SMU got in, but can they do anything in the bracket?
I have them. They're my first round upset. I'm going
Oh, wow.
SMU. I like Penn State. They played Oregon tough in the Big Ten championship, but Penn State doesn't win big games. Like they've proven
Wow.
it time and time again. There's always going to be something that busts the bracket. I'm going to give it to SMU. I like their offense. I think this will probably end up being a shootout, but I think they got something to prove too. I'm going to go SMU.
SMU as the big upset. What a pick for Kaden. I like the pick. I don't think Penn State gets upset this round. I'm going to go, I'm going to go Penn State here. I'm sticking with them. I think it's a close game. They barely pull it out at the end. All right. Indiana versus Notre Dame.
I'm going to go Notre Dame. I think they're playing really good football this season besides that one loss. They're on a pretty good tear right now. I think Indiana showed that when they play a really good team, what happens to them in that Ohio State game. I just don't think Indiana's quite there yet. I'm glad they got into, but I think Notre Dame wins this game.
All right, going back to Indiana versus Notre Dame. I think I'm going to go Indiana here. I'm riding with the coach. He's got a lot of confidence. His team's got a little bit of swagger to him. I know they lost that Ohio State game earlier in the year, but I think they've got something to prove too. We talked about teams that have got something to prove. I think a lot of people don't necessarily think this team's legit, and I think they're here to prove it. And I'm going to go with Indiana in round one as my first round upset there. All right, back to your tab. Texas versus Arizona State. Big 12 champs versus Texas.
Oh, Arizona State was picked last in the Big 12 this year, preseason.
Yep.
And they're 11-1, just pretty much dominating.
Yep.
Through that. I know the Big 12 isn't necessarily that tough this year. Texas has, they haven't really played that good against good teams. They lost both their matchups to Georgia. They avoided the tough SEC schedule. I like chaos. I like Arizona State. Give me Scadabro, whatever that guy's name is, the running back.
Yeah.
Scadabro.
He
Give me
actually like
him.
one of the
Big
posts
game.
on Logical Nonsense podcast.
Nice. Yeah, give me him. He's going off.
All right, another upset in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I'm going to go with Texas. I think Texas gets it done. But I could see this game being really close. I like Arizona State. I like the momentum they have, but I just think Texas edges them out talent-wise. I'm going to go with the boring pick here. All right, back to Ohio State versus Oregon. What a matchup in the quarterfinals in a Rose Bowl game.
Rematch from earlier in the season, 1-point game, ended in chaos. I just think Oregon's playing really good football right now, and I think they're on a different trend than Ohio State, so I'm going to go Oregon.
Oregon versus Arizona State, two Pac-12 teams that we used to see in the semifinals. What would the Pac-12 be? All right. I'm going to go with Ohio State. I think they're looking for vengeance. I think a lot of people doubt them after that Michigan game. I love the chaos. I think Ryan Day saves his job, gets the upset over Oregon here, puts their team into the semifinal. I didn't share my tab, did I? But yeah, big upset there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Back to your tab. SMU versus Boise State.
I know there's going to be one team that surprises, and it's going to be SMU, and I want them in the semifinals. I don't know why
Wow.
I like this team. I think they're just going to outscore Boise State. I think Gentil will probably have 200 something on the ground, a couple touchdowns, but I just think SMU is a better team. I'm
Wow.
going to give them. I
What
want
a
chaos.
pick. SMU to the Orange Bowl semifinals. Wow. Notre Dame versus Georgia.
I'm going to do Georgia. Sorry, Notre Dame is where it ends. I think Georgia's going to get hot here in the playoffs.
Georgia advances to the semifinal. All right, back to my tab. Penn State versus Boise State for me. I think this is where Penn State's road ends. Genty proves why he's the Heisman here. Goes off for a 250 game here in the Fiesta Bowl. Indiana versus Georgia. I think this is where Indiana's storytell little run goes and ends. I'm going with Georgia here. All right, back to your tab, and we're going to do both semifinals at the same time. Arizona State versus Oregon.
Fortunately, I don't think this will be as close as some of the other matches. I'm going to go Oregon to the Natty.
Oregon into the Natty. SMU versus Georgia.
Sorry, SMU, I can't justify any more upsets. I wish I could, but Georgia would probably steamroll this one too.
Georgia, Oregon, Georgia into the championship was a weird way to get there, but we got there. All right, here we go. Back to my tab. I got Texas, Ohio State, two technically upsets into the semifinals. I'm going to go with Ohio State here. Bold ass take. Bold ass take here. I'm going Ohio State all the way to championship for the first time in a long time since the Ezekiel Elliott days. Going down to Boise State versus Georgia, I think is where Boise State's road ends and we get a Georgia-Ohio State national championship. All right. Back to your national championship. Who you got? Oregon, Georgia.
I went to Oregon USC last year. Oregon's electric. I think they're due. Give me Oregon. National champs.
Oregon. I think this would be one of their first, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
What do you want the points to be?
We're going to see. It's going to be something like 38-35, so 72.
70. Whoa. 72. Bracket has been submitted. All right. Back to mine. I think Georgia is the boring one, and I'm going to go with Georgia here. I think they've went through a lot this season. They've had a lot of close games, but they've always ended on top. I think the same goes here. Give me Georgia. We're going to go. I'm going to go 76 here. All right, those are our brackets. What did you think of mine? What do you think of yours?
Maybe a little bit too many upsets, but it's the first one, so I'm just going to ensure that chaos happens. I feel like nothing goes straight forward, especially in college football. So
yeah,
had to throw a couple. I easily could see, Penn State beating SMU or Boise State beating SMU or Arizona State losing to Texas, but you never know, man. In one of those, neutral site games, anything can happen. So
yep. What would you say, or what are your thoughts? Like, are you excited for this college football playoff? I know There was a lot of talk if it should go to 12 teams. You still think it's too much? I don't know if you were on that train. Are you excited for it?
I'm very excited for it. I think 12 is a good number. I think as an FCS football fan, the bracket's 24 teams. So the first round of that's usually kind of blowouts, but the last 16 you're usually pretty locked in. So I'm
Yep.
excited for this. I felt like when there was 4 teams, you almost could predict at least one of the 2 matchups every year.
Yep.
And so you'd know, but this, you have to win more games. So it's more unpredictable. I think it's more fun. More colleges have a chance. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And I think it'll bring a new atmosphere and a better atmosphere to the college football playoff, because I think so much of the college football playoff is, and it still is to an extent, but it's who got in, especially with 4 teams. And now I think it's like, all right, who can play? Because now you have 12 teams. I think it's a lot more of that endurance game, that long strategy game. I think it's going to change the way teams play. I think teams are going to go all out, man. I'm really excited. I think it'll bring more college football viewers than they've had in the past. I think, to your point, I think it brings a layer of unpredictability, which will be really fun for college football, and something I think college football has needed for many years to come now. Crazy, it used to just be the BCS Bowl.
Yep.
2
Insane.
teams decided by a little machine. Crazy. All right, well, let's talk about NFL Week 14. What were your overall thoughts on Week 14? Some of the major headlines Week 14. Obviously, Lions get it done on Thursday night. Seahawks big win over the Cardinals. I know that was probably a stab for you. I know you were a believer in the Cardinals a little bit there. Another big highlight was the Rams beating the Bills in an absolutely crazy game. Josh Allen has 6 touchdowns and still loses. Absolutely nuts. The Chiefs, somehow, man, more magic, more fucking dark magic that they pull out of their voodoo. The fucking doink off of the field goal post. Thoughts on Week 14?
I think this is some of the most exciting football in a week that we've had all season. I think there's a lot of banger games. There's also some low lights. Jags, Titans. That was probably the worst
That was
football
probably
game of the
the
season.
worst game of the season. Yes.
Yeah. Dolphins, Jets was as close as competitive as ugly. It was an
Yep.
ugly game. Vikings smoked the Falcons.
The
What's going
Falcons,
on in
yep.
Atlanta?
Bucks, Raiders. That game was
yeah.
ugly. A lot of turnovers
Eagles,
there.
the Panthers are competitive once Bryce Young got back, which is awesome to see for them. They're a drop pass away from beating the Eagles,
Yeah.
who was hot. Like, they're tough now. Panthers are.
Yep.
So it was an exciting week. That Bills game was insane.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Cowboys game. My team makes the great blocked punt and then touch the ball and then let Jamar Chase score 2 plays later when they could have been in field goal range instead and won.
Yep.
Actually, it's better that we lost. Better for the draft pick. But
I was gonna say better for the draft pick. But
it was it was a fun week, and things are starting to shape up now.
Yeah. Yeah, Detroit, I think that was probably their biggest win of the week. Them clinching playoff berth, I believe. In the toughest division, are you still feeling confident Detroit is a Super Bowl contender?
Absolutely. I think they flirted with some losses these last couple weeks, but I still think, like the Chiefs, at the end of games, they find ways to win. They figure it out. They know how.
Yep.
Still very confident in this Detroit team.
And how are you feeling with the Chiefs? Are you still confident in them?
I don't know, because they got that voodoo, right? Where they can,
Yep.
And with the Bills loss, they pretty much are locking up the 1 seed, it feels like.
Yeah.
For the most part, without, barring an end of the season collapse. But I don't think they're that good of a football team. They just find ways to win because they're well coached and their defense plays good and they stick around. Yep. It's not the same Chiefs team, when they were dominating and they're like way more fun to watch. Now it's just grind out games. It's a different Chiefs team, but they win.
They do win. They do grind out teams. I mean, it's just weird because it's like it feels like all these games, like you said, they're kind of boring when you watch the Chiefs now. And It's annoying because it doesn't feel like they should be winning these games,
No.
and they continue to do it and continue to win these games, but it is what it is. All right, well, let's go to our playoff machines. Let's see who we have making the playoffs, sponsored by ESPN.
Yeah.
All right. So, we'll start with your playoff machine. I don't know how we want to do this, but I'll just go matchup by matchup, rapid fire style. You
All right.
tell me who you think you've got for each of these games,
Yeah.
and then I will submit it week by week. All right, Rams,
All right.
Niners, week 15.
All right. Niners,
Ravens,
Ravens,
Giants.
Ravens. I'll just go Jets, Cowboys, Commanders, Bengals, Chiefs, Dolphins, Broncos, Cardinals, Bills, Chargers, Steelers,
Ah.
Packers, Vikings, Falcons.
All right. Well, that got taken care of our rapid fire picks. Some interesting picks here.
Yeah.
Some I want to highlight if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Niners over the Rams. We'll start there. Why do you think the Niners get the edge over the Rams after the Rams got a huge win over the Bills?
I think the Rams are gonna have a little bit of a hangover from that big win. I feel like the Niners, they played really good last week. I think they're gonna show a little bit of life here at the end of the season, and I don't think they're gonna lose to the Rams twice in one season, and they're at home.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to mine in a second, but I like the point that you bring up with the hangover. They did feel like they went all out against the Bills. Like it felt like they were giving their best effort, and I feel like that is because they're trying to make the playoffs so bad. Sean McVay and Matt Stafford make it evident every season that they are trying to make the playoffs regardless of their situation. It feels that way even in their losses, even when they play bad, they play hard, and this defense continues to step up, and they're young. I mean, obviously 42 points isn't great, but what I'm trying to say is I feel like they make key plays, they get turnovers, they'll do the right things at the right times, and yeah. All right. We'll just go through your playoff machine all the way through. All right, week 16.
All right, the Broncos again, Texans, Ravens, Bills, Rams, Eagles, Falcons, Cardinals, Bengals, Colts, Lions, Seahawks, Jags, Niners, Bucks, Packers.
All right, big one here. Broncos over the Chargers. Obviously the Broncos lost the Chargers earlier in the season.
Yeah.
This would put them over the Chargers based off of what you had in week 15. Why do you think the Broncos will edge out the Chargers this time?
I think Denver's playing with confidence, and that defense is playing confident. Besides like one or two games, and like it's whenever I get to divisional games against two solid teams, they tend to split. Is what
Yep.
I've noticed. So I feel like the Broncos get this one.
Okay. What do you think the Broncos need to do against the Chargers? Obviously, Chargers have really stepped up their defense this year with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
What do you think they need to do offensively to beat the Chargers defense?
I think you got to start quick. If you can get a lead on the Chargers and they play from behind, then they can't, control the clock and do their game. That's the best way to beat this Chargers team is to get the ball moving early, misdirection, quick hitters, stuff like that. Okay, so that's how you beat the Chargers. Get them out of their comfort zone.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Another key game. Seahawks over the Vikings. Obviously, two back-to-back NFC North games. You had them losing to the Packers, winning against the Vikings. What do you see that the Seahawks have that will edge them over the Vikings?
I think it's more the Vikings are going to lose this game.
Yep.
Realistically, I feel like they've been flirting with a loss, and they played good last week, but I feel
Yep.
like they're due for a loss.
I
And I
do
think it's a
too.
tough game in Seattle. Who knows what the weather will be like. I think Seattle, they need this for their playoff hopes, and I think they're going to get this one done.
Yeah, I like that. I think Seattle's hungry, and I think the Vikings, to your point, have flirted with losing for quite some time now. I feel like they've been lucky to win really most of their wins for the last 4 or 5 weeks, obviously excluding last week. But I agree. I think the Vikings have been kind of just meh, if we're being honest, and it'll be interesting to see when that game comes.
Yeah.
All right, week 17,
All right.
Chiefs versus Steelers.
That'll be a good one. I got Chiefs,
Ravens.
Ravens, Seahawks, Cardinals, Chargers, Broncos, Commanders, Colts, Bills, Jags, Bucks, Packers, Saints, Eagles, Browns,
Ooh, I like it.
Niners.
All right, some big ones here. Chiefs over the Steelers. I think this could
Good one.
be a make or
This-
break game for the 1 seed when it comes down to it. Why do you think the Chiefs will get it done? Is it their voodoo magic?
Mhm.
What will put them above the Steelers for you?
That's where we're at. The voodoo magic. Plus, I don't know. I feel like the Chiefs, when they play good teams, they step up. Right? I feel like they're playing down to their competition, but then also they excel when they play good teams. This game has all the works of like a 16-14
Oh,
or like a
totally. It's gonna be low
18-15
scoring.
9 field goal kind of game. That's what we're looking at. I think, but I think they'll get it done, cement their 1 seed.
All right. Believes in the Chiefs getting the 1 seed. I like it. I like the case for it. Another game you have Ravens over the Texans. Are you starting to believe in the Texans' downfall a little bit?
I think that's what I'm more in, is a struggling Texans team comparatively to a excelling Baltimore team at this moment. I feel like they're just in a little bit of a slump. Hopefully they rebound after their bye week. I still think they're going to win their division, but I don't know. I don't really see the Texans going out and beating the good teams this year.
Okay. Okay. And the last one you've got here, I don't even know if this would put them in the race or not, but you got Browns over the Dolphins. Do you just like it for the fun of it? One of those fun upsets.
This is my thought. It's going to be snowy in Cleveland in December, and
Okay.
Miami doesn't win in the snow. And I think the Dolphins push. They got to win every game to make a playoff push. And I think it ends here. They get some unfortunate loss and some bad weather against the Browns team.
Okay. Actually, not your last one. I got Niners
So
over the Lions. Very interesting pick there. Why do you have it?
this is where Detroit's been flirting with that loss as well. And I think this is the one where they maybe get a little bit too confident or a little bit too aggressive, like we saw in the championship last year. And I think the Niners get them again.
Okay. Okay. I like it. All right. Moving on to week 18.
Right? Texans, Falcons, Bucks, Seahawks, Bills, Dolphins, Ravens, Steelers, Colts, Chiefs, Chargers, Commanders, Eagles, Lions, Packers, Niners.
Niners. You saw first, second. Eagles almost took over that first seed. Didn't. These are your seeds. AFC, we got Kansas City at 1, Buffalo at 2, Pittsburgh at 3, Houston at 4, Baltimore at 5, Denver at 6, Chargers at 7 seed. On the NFC side, we got Detroit, the 1 seed, Philadelphia at the 2 seed, Seattle at 3, Tampa at the 4 seed, Green Bay at the 5 seed, Minnesota at the 6 seed, and 7 seed, you've got your Commanders. All right, starting with the AFC, do you think Kansas City getting that 1 seed will matter in the sense that think it'll help get them into the Super Bowl?
I think it's big. I think it's bigger for them having the 1 seed than letting the Bills get the
Yeah.
1 seed. Because if the Bills had the 1 seed, then I think it easily runs through Buffalo. I think they have a pretty easy walk to the Super Bowl. But with it being Kansas City, you never know what happens in those AFC championships in Kansas City.
True.
So I think it's big for them and more big that the Bills don't have that 1 seed.
True. Divisional game matchup for them is going to be against Houston or Baltimore. What do you think about that?
I think they
Or wait,
probably
no, that's
they
not
play
even
the
true.
lowest
It's
seed,
whoever the lowest seed is. Never
yeah,
mind.
which could be a Denver team, could
Could
be
be.
Baltimore. I think realistically, you'd get the Bills would win, the Ravens would win, and that Pittsburgh Denver game's a toss up. It's going to be a defensive battle, but I'd say Pittsburgh probably wins with the way they're playing this year.
So you got
Sorry.
Ravens against them then.
Yeah, so I'd have the Ravens against them.
What do you think?
Man, I feel like the Ravens are so due to beat the Chiefs, man. If they're always so close and they always just fall short.
All right.
Yeah, I'll go
All
with it.
right.
I'll
I
go with
like it.
Baltimore over the Chiefs.
Okay. Back on December 10th. Caden's calling it now.
Yep.
All right. On the NFC side, you got Detroit at the 1 seed. They've got, I would say, decent path, especially, you could see Green Bay, maybe Tampa. You could get an upset by either Commanders or the Vikings, but I feel confident in the Lions over any of those teams in that round 1 matchup. How are you feeling about them playing the Eagles potentially in the championship?
I just think it runs through Detroit. I think I'm confident with Detroit against every team. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know why I feel like Green Bay might be like their hardest team. I think
Yeah.
they match like it from the matchups we've seen. I think
Yeah.
they match up well, and you never know divisional games in the playoffs how those go. But I think Detroit's just so well coached, talent wise, schemed wise, that I think the Eagles could give them a chance. But if it's in Detroit, I just don't see them losing.
Yeah, I could see that. All right, well, going to my NFL playoff machine. I have screenshots from earlier today that I took. All right, round 1, I have the Rams. I got the Rams over the Niners this week. Ravens, Jets, Panthers. Sorry, kid. Commanders, Bengals, Chiefs, Broncos, Cardinals, Bills over the Lions. I also had that. Chargers, Steelers, Green Bay, the Vikings, and the Falcons. You got any questions for my week 15?
We both agree with the Steelers over the Eagles. You need to pick your Dolphin. Who'd you have with the Dolphins or the Texans?
1 second. Sorry. I think my screenshot cut out on that one. Texans.
Yeah. No, I think we're pretty much straightforward here with our thoughts.
All right. I mean, I like the Rams over the Niners.
Yeah.
Mostly because I just think they're super hungry. I totally get the take on them being a little hungover, like you said, but I just think they're hungry. I think McVay wants to give it everything he's got left for this game. And I think it will kind of kick into gear, as you'll see later in my playoff bracket, for the Seahawks to kind of have to go on a run to get back into playoff contention. And I think it makes things interesting, which I really like, because I feel like there's always that 1 or 2 playoff teams that are kind of back and forth. So, all right, going to week 16 for me, I also got the Broncos over the Chargers, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Texans, Ravens, Bills, Rams, Eagles, Falcons, Cardinals, Bengals, Colts, Lions, Seahawks, Jags, Dolphins, Bucks, and the Green Bay Packers. Some very different ones. I'm sure you noticed right away. Texans over the Chiefs.
Oh, dude.
I think they're destined to lose to some team. I don't know why I think it's the Texans. The Texans have been on a downturn,
Yep.
but I feel like, to me, it's one of those games nobody will see coming, and those are the games that scare me. That's why I went with the Texans there.
Yep.
I think it'll just be one of those games where somehow they get a miracle out of it that doesn't go the Chiefs' way. I also went with the Ravens over the Steelers. I just see them splitting that series. I don't see Ravens losing both games. It'll be close. It'll be hard fought, but I just see it going the Ravens' way this time. I also had the Seahawks over the Vikings, so I agreed with you there. We already kind of talked about that. Any other ones that kind of jump out to you?
I think it's crazy how all these like 50-50 good games, or even maybe like 60-40, we're picking the 40s in agreement. You know, like the Broncos, they're probably a 40.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are probably a 40. You and I
Yeah.
both picked the Texans on this one, actually. So,
Oh, really? Okay.
yep,
I didn't
yep,
catch that.
yep.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then the only difference I think we have is the Dolphins and the Niners, which I
Yeah.
could see going either way.
I went with the Dolphins purely off of hunger again.
Yep.
Just I think they can still make it. I don't think they will. I don't have them making it, but I think this is a game where we could see Tyreek, Jalen Waddle kind of go back to last year. Week 17. All right, here we go. I've got Steelers over the Chiefs, Ravens, Seahawks, Rams, Chargers, Bengals over the Broncos, Bills, Titans, Bucks, Green Bay, Saints, Eagles, Dolphins, and the Lions. Some pretty interesting ones here. Obviously, the Steelers beating the Chiefs. That would put the Bills at the 1 seed, which would be absolutely crazy to see the Chiefs go down to. But when I think about the Chiefs and what historically they've done, it feels like they always go into the playoffs with some sort of doubt. And I think you could hear those murmurings going into playoffs. For some reason, that's how I see their story going into playoffs. They lost the 1 seed. They're starting to lose momentum. They're not winning those games anymore. I think, like you said, very close game. I like Tomlin. Give me Tomlin over Kansas City in the close one. 2 back-to-back games they lose. The Bills kind of have an easier schedule, so I went with the Bills. Other games highlight. I could see for some reason the Bengals kind of tearing apart. The secondary with the Broncos. I like PS2, but if PS2 is guarding Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, I just think what Joe Burrow is doing with that offense right now could kind of show some weaknesses in the secondary for the Broncos. I also didn't pick this game. Sorry. 1 second. Got Commanders. Yeah, I could see Joe Burrow kind of showing some weakness in the Broncos secondary. Yeah, any other games that jump out to you?
You had Lions in this one, totally understandable. Revenge game for the NFC Championship last
Yep.
year. If that's probably where your train of thought is. Titans steal against the Jags, and probably the second ugliest game of the year. Who knows how
Yep.
that one's going to go.
I had
Carolina,
them splitting.
I was thinking I didn't pick them either, but they could beat the Bucks. They should have
I
beat them
could
the
see
first
it.
time.
Yep.
I don't know.
I could
Green
see
Bay,
it.
Minnesota could go either way, even though we're in agreement on a lot of these still. What else do I like? Do we think the Commanders lose one of these games at the end? You and I both have been picking them a lot too,
No,
but
I definitely
they're
could see them
they're
losing one of them.
susceptible. Like when they lost to the Cowboys, right? They had that little 3-game losing
Yeah.
streak. So That's something Falcons could. I could see the Falcons,
Squeaking
stealing
in
that
there.
one
Yeah.
too. But I like the picks around. I think Denver Bengals. It's going to be a one-score game. That's just how the Bengals are. I don't care who they play.
Yep.
It'll
Yep.
be one score, so that can go either way. And
Yep.
then, man, the Rams are on a heater for you right now.
Rams are on a heater. I like the Rams. So week 18,
Mm.
here we go to decide who gets into the playoffs. God damn it, I didn't take screenshots of this. Well, I kind of remember Texans. I've got the Falcons, the Bucks, the Seahawks, the Bills, Dolphins, Ravens, Steelers, Colts. This is crazy. Broncos, Chargers, Commanders. You know what? For the fun of it, since we just talked about, I'll go Cowboys. Steal one here. Eagles, Lions, Green Bay. Actually, you know what? Yeah, they've got it secured. I'll go Vikings there because I could see them sitting some
Yeah.
guys if they've got it secured. And then lastly, I'll go Cards. This is my final. Obviously, big thing here is the Chiefs lose another game. I think. Oh, what? Almost 3 straight. Yeah, it is 3 straight. It's crazy. I know it's crazy, but they do have a tough 4 weeks, and I think there's a case for it. I don't love the case for it. I know it's crazy. What do you think of it?
I don't love the case for it either. I don't see them dropping below the 2 seed. Maybe they lose a couple games, but I don't see the Steelers then jumping them. I feel like they're going to be at 1 or 2 seed.
Okay.
I don't think the football gods, the refs, the NFL would let them fall to a 3 seed. Whoever's on their side.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the Steelers at 13-4 is crazy, right? Because every year they come in 10-7, 9-8. They won't have a losing record, but they're going to squeak in. And now this is a dominant Steelers team, and we've seen it how they're dominant. We've also seen them play bad against bad teams. So 13-4, I think maybe a game high. But looking over at the NFC, you have 4 teams at 14-3 or 13-4. Pretty dominant NFC, and it should be that way. It's how it's been all year.
Yep.
It's crazy to see that the Lions, Packers, Vikings, all 13-win minimum teams. That's insane for a division. Your only losses are really just against each other at that point, which is crazy. I think we have all the same teams.
Yeah, we do. Just jumbled up in seeds. Yeah.
But I mean, there's only a couple teams that I think could even squeak in.
Compete. Yeah, and I think it's going to take
Rams,
a lot of magic
maybe.
and Rams and Colts I think are the 2 teams. I think the Dolphins have a case, but they need some teams to start losing, and I just don't really see that with the momentum of some of these teams for the AFC. So, yeah, those are our brackets. Some craziness. We love it, but all right, we're still got time for NFL MVP of the week as well as hot seat of the week. NFL MVP player. Who's your NFL MVP of the week?
Man, it's hard. It's got to be Josh Allen, right? 6 touchdowns, but they lost, and it's where I'm torn because I also want to give a shout out to Sam Darnold for 5 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm gonna go Sam Darnold. Give him some love. He won.
Okay.
They won their game. 5 touchdowns. Sure.
I think I'm gonna go with Josh Allen. I know they lost, but individually, that is an insane performance. 6 touchdowns is just nuts. He willed his team back into this game. They had no business even having a chance at a comeback, and they still did. So I'm gonna go with Josh Allen for this week. Who's your NFL MVP team?
Look at these scores. I can go. It's hard not to go with the Rams, right? Because it's a huge win for them and their playoff implications. Huge win for the Seahawks and their playoff implications. Huge win for the Lions and their seeding for the playoff implications. A lot of big wins this week. I'll go with the Rams. I think they beat a team that no one thought they were going to beat, and they scored almost every possession on them. So I'll go with the Rams.
I'm going to go with another team from their division. I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think that was their biggest game of the season, and they finally delivered. They didn't choke. I think they finally showed that when what did I say last week? They need to get the running game established.
Yep.
Look what happened. Their team finally opened up. They looked good on defense. They caused some turnovers. And Cardinals aren't a bad team. I know they have been kind of on the downturn as of late, but this is a huge win for playoff implications for the division. Huge win, and I think it's going to steer them in the right direction in terms of momentum. I think Seahawks are looking to be a playoff team now. All right, hottest seat. I want to start here. I'm going Kirk Cousins. 2 back-to-back weeks with 4 interceptions, 8 interceptions in 2 games. Look, people weren't talking about Michael Penix being put in, really. Now they are. And I think he's on the hottest seat. I hate to say it. I don't think it's the right move necessarily, but I think he's on the hottest seat right now in terms of media, in terms of the team. I think the team could look to see Penix if Kirk Cousins has one more bad game.
Yeah, I agree. That's, he was coming off that beginning of November where he was just on fire.
Yep.
Man, and then just don't know what happened. It's just one of the craziest slides for the year. For me, go Dable, head coach for the Giants. I think it's over, man. They got planes flying. They got planes flying around asking players if they paid for them. This is a dumpster fire, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I think honorable mention to Drew Lock. I don't know if he necessarily had a position, but I think any hopes of people thinking he could be a starter again, that's kind of out the window after his performances that he's had of late. Sucks because we love Horsecock Lock on this channel. So, all right, Katie, you got anything else?
Nope. Let's gear up. I'm excited for these next couple weeks of football.
Absolutely. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for having you on. Thanks for hopping on. A little different format of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's get to 500. God damn it. We're at freaking 476. It's December 10th. All I want for Christmas is 500 subscribers. Make it happen, people. And as always, stay logical and rant that nonsense, baby.